On the evening of August 12, 1985, a normal summer day in Japan turned into the darkest tragedy in aviation history. Imagine one airplane packed with families, children, businessmen, and travelers suddenly becoming the stage of the deadliest single aircraft disaster the world has ever seen. That plane was Japan Airlines Flight 123. And the story of its final journey still haunts aviation experts to this day. The Boeing 747 SR had taken off from Tokyo's Haneda Airport, its destination, Osaka, a short domestic flight just over an hour. Nothing unusual. On board were 524 people. Some waved to their loved ones, some were tired after a long day, and some children looked out of the windows with innocent excitement. For them, it was supposed to be just another safe, ordinary flight. But little did they know, fate had already written a horrifying end. Just 12 minutes after takeoff, something went terribly wrong. A loud explosive sound shook the entire aircraft. The passengers screamed. The cabin pressure suddenly dropped. The tail of the plane had been ripped apart. The vertical stabilizer, the backbone of the aircraft's balance, was gone, and along with it the hydraulic systems, the very nerves and muscles that allow a plane to be controlled, had all failed at once. The Boeing 747 had become nearly impossible to fly. Inside the cockpit, Captain Masami Takahama and his crew fought desperately. They pulled the yokes, they pressed the pedals, but nothing responded the way it should. Imagine the horror of being thousands of feet in the air, inside a machine that no longer listens to your commands. Yet these pilots, they did not give up. They used every ounce of training, every bit of strength, to somehow keep the crippled aircraft in the sky. Down below, people on the ground looked up and saw something terrifying. A massive jumbo jet, wobbling violently in the sky, flying in circles, struggling to stay airborne. Some described it as if the plane was drunk, staggering across the heavens, refusing to fall but unable to fly straight. For 32 agonizing minutes, Flight 123 remained in the air. 32 minutes of pure terror. Inside the cabin, panic had turned into despair. The oxygen masks had dropped, but with the cabin torn open, the thin mountain air made breathing difficult. Passengers scribbled farewell notes to their loved ones on scraps of paper, on boarding passes, even on the backs of envelopes. One man wrote, "I don't think I can survive this. Please take care of our children." Another, a mother, held her child tightly, whispering comfort, even though she herself was trembling with fear. These notes, later recovered, would become the last words of people who knew death was only minutes away. But how did this happen? How could a modern aircraft simply lose control? The answer lay in a tragic mistake years earlier. 7 years before this flight, the same Boeing 747 had suffered a tail strike accident. During repairs, engineers from Boeing made a critical error. Instead of replacing the bulkhead with a proper continuous structure, they used an incorrect double patch, a design that left a fatal weakness. Over years of pressurization and depressurization, the flaw grew, until on that August evening the rear pressure bulkhead finally gave way. The entire tail section was torn apart. A single mistake in repair had now doomed over 500 lives. As the pilots struggled, Japanese air traffic controllers tried to help. They suggested emergency landing sites, Nagoya, Haneda, even Yokota, a U.S. military base nearby. But without hydraulics, the plane simply could not make a controlled descent. The crew kept circling, climbing and falling uncontrollably, fighting a losing battle. yet their courage kept the aircraft in the air far longer than anyone thought possible. Finally, at 6:56 p.m., the inevitable happened. The plane, wildly unstable, smashed into the ridge of Mount Takamagahara in Ueno, Gunma Prefecture. The explosion shook the mountains. The fireball lit up the sky. The crash was so violent that out of 524 souls on board, 520 were killed instantly. Only 4 survived, 4 women, found among the wreckage the next morning, clinging to life in a scene of unimaginable devastation. Rescue efforts, too, were clouded in controversy. U.S. Air Force personnel at nearby Yokosuka base had prepared helicopters immediately after radar showed the crash, but Japanese authorities hesitated, insisting on sending their own teams. Precious hours were lost. Survivors later recalled that through the night they heard cries and voices of people trapped, slowly fading away. If rescue had come sooner, perhaps more lives could have been saved. This delay remains one of the most haunting questions about the tragedy. When investigators pieced together the wreckage, the truth emerged. The faulty repair from years earlier had doomed the flight from the moment it took off. The Boeing company accepted responsibility. The engineer who supervised the repair, overwhelmed by guilt, later took his own life. His suicide note read, "I cannot atone for the lives lost. I must die to apologize." It was not just an accident. It was a tragedy born from human error, from a single oversight that snowballed into the worst air crash involving one aircraft in history. And even today, the legacy of Flight 123 lingers. Every August, families of the victims climb the mountain where the plane went down. They light candles, they place flowers, they whisper prayers for the souls of their loved ones. For them, time has not healed the wound. For them, the sound of that plane's final moments still echoes in their hearts. Japan Airlines Flight 123 is not just a story about an airplane crash. It is a chilling reminder of how fragile life is, how one small mistake can change the fate of hundreds. It is a story of human courage, of desperate struggle against the impossible, and of the sorrow left behind when fate finally wins. As we remember those 520 lives lost on that summer evening, one question still hangs in the air like a shadow. If a single bolt, a single repair had been done differently, would all those people have lived? Sometimes history does not give us answers. It only leaves us with silence and a mountain where the voices of Flight 123 will never be forgotten.